Hey MVPs, Rico Knows here. Going to talk to you guys about a 2024 futures bet. If you don't know what that means we're going to be betting on the win totals for these teams. If you go to the sports book, you look up win totals, you can bet on these bets before the season starts. But once the season starts, you can't make these bets anymore, and you won't get paid out until after the regular season. Please, it's okay. You're going to get your money at the end of the day because we're going to be right. So here we are. We're looking at Fresno State. And here's what I want to tell you guys. I make a living knowing the group of five better than Las Vegas, better than anyone in the world. And it's because I take the time to actually study these teams. I think Vegas, probably somebody in Vegas just pulls up their Our Lads depth chart here, kind of looks around, looks for names they recognize, and then goes, oh, yeah, that team's going to score this much. That team's going to be this good. I don't do that. I know this depth chart is inaccurate. I know they're missing certain players. I know they have no clue what they're talking about. And when I look at a win-loss total for Fresno State being 7.5 wins, okay, first and foremost, they obviously expect them to hit the over because it's minus 148. It's a lot more obvious, right? They're going to win at least 8 games. Guys, Fresno State is the best team in the Mountain West. I've evaluated all the teams. I mean, I've looked it over. And let's talk about it. You look at last season's schedule, they beat Purdue. They go in, takes double overtime to beat Eastern Washington. They shut out Arizona State 29-0. Beat the hell out of Kent State, beat Nevada, lose to Wyoming at Wyoming. It's impossible to win at Wyoming. Remember that. They beat Utah State. 2 weeks to prepare. They beat UNLV and Boise State. And those back-to-back games kind of ruined their season because at the end of those games, Mikey Keene wasn't healthy anymore. Now you got to start some dude named Fife who sucks. And you go and lose the next 3 games to San Jose State, New Mexico, and San Diego State. Guess who shows back up for the bowl game against the 10-win team? Against the 10-win team, Mikey Keene shows back up 500 yards of offense. Beat the crap out of New Mexico State. And that's Diego Pavia and the boys actually played in the game. There was no opt-outs. This is 2024, Fresno State. The team we're about to see was right here beating the crap out of New Mexico State, a 10-win team. Okay? When you go and look at this and you look at the results, I gotta explain something to you guys, man. Fresno State, we look at the quarterback room. Mikey Keene is him. Showed up from UCF, transferred in. He was my hidden gem last year. I told you guys he was going to be great. Dominant and played great. Yes, he got injured. Just a shade under 3,000 yards passing. But this dude can play. Dude's amazing. Gamer. Ready to go win everything. Logan Fife sucks. Hit the transfer portal. He's now at the FCS. He was going to try to go to Minnesota, and I told everybody, he can't play at Minnesota. Trust me. And then he ended up going to, I think he's at Montana. Or Montana State. He's at Montana. Not good. Shout out to him. Running backs. Malik Sherrod shows up out of nowhere last year. Sherrod plays out of his mind. Okay? This is his final year of eligibility. He's been around for a long time, but he plays out of his mind. Almost 1,000-yard rusher. 9 touchdowns. Dependable down the stretch. Elijah Gilliam, same thing. Very good running backs, these two. Shout out to them. Receivers, and I want to talk about Jalen Gill transferring in, gave them a little bit different dynamic. Jalen Gill used to be a running back, and he was committed to Ohio State, 4-star kid, didn't work out, moved to slot, moved to receiver, ended up transferring to Boston College, played pretty decent there, and then he transferred in late in the offseason, and he showed up to Fresno State, and he really helps out. Fresno State's got small receivers, short guys. They're everywhere. They're open everywhere. And Eric Brooks was the cream of the crop. Now, although Eric Brooks was the guy, you see Jalen Moss right there. He actually had more touchdowns. 5 less receptions, less yards, but 1 more touchdown. Jalen Moss is back. Magdalena, he's back. This is a local kid. Local guy Finally played out of his mind. Got one more year left. These are the receivers remind me of like Amendola. That's what they remind me of. Jalen Moss is a little bigger, over 6 feet, California kid as well. But when I look at Magdalena, he's just they're those guys. The Amendola type dudes. They did lose Trey Watson. Trey Watson, tight end, he's gone. And I think that's going to hurt because he transferred up to Washington and then eventually went to A&M, I think. And for me, they don't have a replacement for Watson. I believe Boust is going to play. Jake Boust been there a long time, or a couple years now. Hasn't ever really showed me that he can play. But what's crazy is they didn't go to the transfer portal for any tight end. They didn't see any tight end that could help them anywhere. So they like their tight end room. Wide receiver room, we'll talk about it when I get there. Defensively, Langley, stud, and he's back. Team's leading tackler. Everything about him is great. Dean Clark just transferred in. Great. I think when I was doing my video yesterday on the hidden gem for Fresno State, I was talking about a guy who transferred in from Kent State. It was Dean Clark. It's my bad. Complete baller. Let's see who else is here. Devo Bridges, stud at the edge. Love everything about him. Bracker's a safety, just started last year for the first time. Congrats. Phoenix Jackson, great depth at linebacker. He'll be a backup linebacker. This guy right here, Zillion Hamilton. Al Zillion Hamilton, stud. Love everything about him on tape. That's a good player. Let's keep looking. Lightfoot, starting defensive tackle. He'll be out here. And Lightfoot, I don't know why these don't match up. These don't line up. But Lightfoot is one of these guys that you really got to believe in. Oh, shit, there's Asinga. Asinga just transferred in. Didn't I? Penn State? Didn't I talk about this dude the other day? Not Penn State. Who am I thinking of? It's another Asinga. I'm tripping, bro. I'm tripping. Namora over here, healthy. It's a shame the stats aren't lining up with the names. But Namora, USC transfer, Centennial High School. I'll talk about all these guys on the depth chart. Here, let me do this. Let me pull up the depth chart. So the depth chart's not accurate. Yes, 3 receivers coming back. Freeman, Moss, and Delina. As you were looking at those stats and you're looking at the receivers, there's Moss, Delina, and Freeman. They're all here. Everybody had about 20 or more receptions. So very productive wide receivers coming back. Craziest thing is they added more receivers. They didn't just sit back and say, yeah, we're going to come back with those guys. No, they added more receivers. If you go to their transfer portal class, which hasn't been entered in there, you see Raylan Sharp, an FCS complete stud. One of the FCS leading receivers, Raylan Sharp, hit the transfer portal, and he's here. Another receiver, Cheaton James down here. Cheaton James was the best receiver, one of the very best receivers at St. John Bosco a couple years ago. St. John Bosco last year had Stacey Dobbins. Nobody liked him, so he went to UC Davis because he's too small. Well, Cheaton James is 5'10", 5'9", 170 pounds. He's too small. Went to Idaho State, knocked it out the park. Oh, I think he had over 1,000 yards receiving, and now he's here. Some of the very best FCS wide receivers transferred in. And then there's Jake Parnigan. Hey, let me tell you something about Jake here. Jake is a local kid. He went to Washington for 2 years, but he's back home. This is a kid from Clovis, from Fresno. Jake was in the 100-meter final in the state of California. Ran a 10.5, 100 meters. So when you got speed like this, production like this, you're bringing in these just weapons, bro. Mess around and find out. Fafo on that wide receiver room. I love the wide receiver room. They got 3 guys returning with production. You bring in 3 studs. Guys, little dudes who will route you up. 5'9", 5'9", 5'10". I know. Just trust. Mikey Key's little too. I'm with it. There's Corey Foreman. Everybody talks about him all off season. 5-star. Yeah, he'll be on the depth chart. They say he's in the starting lineup. Former 5-star. USC. Number 1 player out of high school. Shout out to Chrono Centennial. Let's get over here. Let's talk about it. So, looking at the roster, I'm going to say something about the offensive line real quick. This offensive line, all these singers, right? All these guys returning. When I watch tape and I do my film assessment, Fresno State has the best offensive line of any group of 5 school in America. In America. I'm going to pull this up. I want you guys to pay attention to this column right here. Okay, maybe you can't see it because you're on a small phone or something. Let me blow it up. Let me control drag that. Offensive line. Fresno State, just for future reference, Fresno State, according to my rankings, and my rating system, has a 7 on the offensive line. It is their best position group out of 10, okay? 7. 10 being the very best in college football. That's why I love their running back room. I love their wide receiver room. And it's still not a 10 because I'm talking about NFL draft picks, right? 10 is NFL draft picks. 9 is probably an all-conference first team in the Power 4. An 8 would be second team and an NFL draft pick. A 7 is first team all-conference in a group of 5 conference. That's kind of how the ratings work in certain position groups. Everything's graded on a curve. And what that means is you got a 10 down here at Georgia, so you can't be a 10. But seeing a 7 at Fresno State is such a big deal on the offensive line. Let me show you guys. Let's scroll down and look for other 7s. Arkansas in the SEC, 7. Auburn, SEC, 7. Baylor, 7. Cincinnati, Big 12, 7. Florida, Fresno State. We won't even look at the 8s. We're just looking at 7s. Kansas State, Louisville. Do you guys notice something? If I give you a 7, you are probably a Power 4 team. Memphis, one of the very best. Miami of Ohio, dominant up front in their offensive line. Minnesota, Nebraska, Northern Illinois. So now there's 3 group of 5 schools that are equivalent to them. 7, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Penn State. I'm sorry, not Penn State. Penn State's worse. Pitt, Purdue, SMU, South Carolina, Stanford, Syracuse, TCU. I think you get the point. Tulane, very, very good. Utah, and Wake Forest. Those are all my 7s. Think about those teams and how dominant they are up front. I think Fresno State is going to have a rushing attack you don't want to mess with. Sherrod's going to go crazy. Sherrod's going to rush for 1,200 yards, and their play action is going to hurt people because of these little guys just zipping all around. And Mikey Keene being in the system for yet another year. I'm really excited for Fresno State's offense. Yep, I'm really excited for it. And now when we talk about their defense, Fresno State's offense is a 69, okay? Their defense is a 72.5. I want you guys to think about that. Okay, the defense is even better. The defense to me seems so good. And it's on paper. But Bridges is a stud at defensive end. You brought in Foreman. They have depth at these defensive line positions. I see a lot of depth back here. These are guys I recognize and see on tape. They stick out. Jacob Holmes, for whatever reason, has 5 sacks as a defensive tackle, which is nuts. I was talking about Corona Centennial, one of the top high schools, public high schools in California. Right? Shout out to the Huskies. I used to coach football and play in Southern California, in Riverside County, in the Inland Empire. And we used to travel to Corona Centennial. Beautiful school. They weren't a powerhouse back then. Now they are. And they've been a powerhouse for a long time. Guess what? Lightfoot here started every game last year. Lightfoot, Foreman, and Namora, all Corona Centennial products. They're all from the same high school. And Langley's the leader of this defense. And Langley's the leader of the defense right here. Phoenix Jackson can play. Great depth. Right? The only concern I have is Julian Neal at left corner. I've never really seen him play at that echelon, at that level. All the tape I see, I can see what they brought in Embry. But Embry's a JUCO kid. He's been at JUCO for 3 years. I think he was dealing with an injury. But I don't know if he's better than Neal. I wouldn't be surprised if Embry was starting over Neal. But either way, it just doesn't feel like they're the same caliber as the rest of the defense. Because Dean Clark is a stud. Cameron, going to start again this year. And then I told you Hamilton's a damn beast. And then your X factor, the one nobody knows about, is Justin Houston. Didn't play last year due to injury, but he used to start. And he used to play a lot back in 2022 and all that. So, like, for me, this is special, man. The offense has no holes in it with the exception of Baus. And maybe Baus can just block like crazy and split open this running game. But you're bringing back both starting running backs, your 2 leading rushers. You're bringing back your best quarterback, your entire offensive line. You've got receivers for days. The defense is all returned. Like, everybody's here, bro. What are we doing? Starters everywhere. The one guy you're missing, Corey Foreman, filled in for it. I really like Fresno State when I watch them on tape and when I assess their talent for what it is. So looking at their schedule next season, are they going to win 8 games? Well, they have Michigan in the first week. They're on the road in the Big House. It doesn't look good. Obviously, Michigan's a daunting team. Very, very physically dominant up front. But I want you guys to pay attention to the number 1 defensive line in America in Michigan. And I want you to see how well Fresno State's offensive line holds up against those guys. I know, it's a daunting task, but just watch it. It's a 10 versus a 7 when it comes to defensive line versus that offensive line. So it shouldn't be equivalent. I get it. But just watch it. Just watch it. They're going to beat the brakes off of Sacramento State. They're going to outscore them. They're going to just obliterate New Mexico State. They just beat the hell out of New Mexico State in that bowl game. New Mexico State lost everybody in the transfer portal. They're going to beat them by 50. Okay? Pay attention to that spread. We'll be betting on it. Then they're at New Mexico. Revenge. We're showing up. We're healthy. You're done. At UNLV looks like a tough game. I still think they're better, but I respect UNLV. 2 weeks to prepare for Washington State. I have not assessed Washington State's defense. Okay. You can say these are losses. You could if you wanted to. I'm at 1, 2, 3 wins. 4 wins, they're beating Nevada. 5, they're beating San Jose State. 6, they're beating Hawaii. 7, they're beating Air Force. Now they got to beat Colorado State with 2 weeks of prep or at UCLA. I think they win 8 games. But more importantly, I think they win. I think they have a chance to win the Mountain West. Like, when I went and checked the sports book, it says conference champs right here, and the winner is Boise State. The team in the lead is Boise State. Guys, I've assessed Boise State. I don't think Boise State is as good as Fresno State. They weren't last year. Remember, they played each other, and Fresno beat them. Everybody talks about Boise like they're great. Fresno beat them. Fresno beat UNLV. They beat these guys. And they got better. Fresno State got better. Boise did not get better. Boise did not get better. I promise you. So, I get it, man. Vegas has them in mind. I like this 420. I like the 420 a lot. I really do. I'm telling you. I feel like when I assess rosters, teams, potential, and everything, the only other offense that I like more than Fresno's is Colorado State's. It's the only offense I like more. But I don't know, man. It feels really wrong by the sportsbook. And the only reason they're saying 8 is because they think they're going to lose to UCLA, Washington State, Michigan, UNLV. Like, fine, bro, if that's what you think. Nah, this is going to be one of those situations where a group of 5 team is dominating and looks the part. This is it. I think their offensive line makes them comparable to a lot of teams. Like, straight up, they can line up and first downs lead to touchdowns. Give me Fresno State to dominate this season. I think they win 8 or 9 games. Yep. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Good luck, y'all.